Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Blushing Nerd Tarot. It's been a little while. I've been producing just a couple of videos this weekend, and I haven't published any of them yet. Um, there would be some editing and things like that, and I've really done more with live stuff. In anything I've done lately has really been live, mostly so that I could avoid that editing step. But then Simon came along with his new tag, and Simon at the Hermit's Cave, of course. And once I saw that, I thought, well, I think this is really the perfect opportunity for me to jump back in. Um, I love responding to some of these tags, and this is a great one. It's really fun. Um, there, Robin at Toadstool Tarot also responded already. He was on it. I think maybe the first one to jump on and respond. So check his out too. It's a wonderful response. Um, so if you haven't seen it yet, of course, go to go to Simon's channel, The Hermit's Cave on YouTube, and check it out. And Of course, always a great host, a great contributor, and just has some wonderful things to say. And this list is no different. So I think we'll go ahead and get started. I mean, it's a basically a list A to Z designed to help the community get to know tarot tubers. Um, and it's just some questions that run across a wide variety of topics. Um, so I have my list over to the side, so you'll see me glancing over a lot. But we'll start with A, and that's author, favorite author. Right now, I'd have to say I like a lot of classics. So certainly Steinbeck, Hawthorne, a lot of those come to mind. But really, right now, Charlie Lovett is one of my favorites. Um, I love the storytelling, and I'm also a book nerd, and Charlie Lovett is a certified book nerd, with a doctorate, I believe, in book nerdology, because he actually is, he's a professional in academia. Around the topic of antiquarian books and things like that. He's written books on book collecting, and that was how he started out. So when he moved into fiction in the 2000s, I can't remember exactly when, but I want to say it was maybe around 2014 or something like that. Could have been earlier. I'm not totally sure. Um, his his fiction is often around the topic of some books, something to do with ancient manuscripts and things like that. It's great. It has a little bit of a Dan Brown vibe, but um, because it has mystery components and things like that. But it's a blast. I really like Charlie Lovett's stuff, and he's a great guy, really nice person. He was kind enough to autograph some first editions that I had of his books when I sent them to him, um, and there was a problem with the postage. I felt terrible. I tried to include postage, but the person at the post office who was helping me do that didn't calculate it correctly. So unfortunately, there wasn't enough postage for him to be able to return it without having to go to the post office and all this. So big long saga. I felt terrible. So I ended up sending him a letter thanking him for all of his extra efforts, and sent along a gift card for a coffee shop, so that hopefully he could, next time he was writing a book, he could have several cups of coffee on me, and thank him for his trouble. But really nice guy, great author. So I've already spent too much time on prompt A, so I probably ought to move to the next. B is biggest regret. I don't have a lot of regrets. I would say it's kind of I think the only one that comes to mind frequently, that I would classify as a regret, is not doing more earlier in life to correct the issues that I have with my ankle. Big bad old injury that wasn't dealt with properly in the initial surgery that I had, and I should have done more early on. But I didn't know. I was young. I thought I was invincible. I could just keep going. And after a couple surgeries, it still wasn't ever right, and never will be right. So that's probably the biggest regret because it has had a big impact on my life. Um, but who knows? Maybe there wasn't anything that could have been done anyway. That's entirely possible. So that's the main one that comes to mind. So car for letter C. What do you listen to most? I am I'm big into podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have several that I have on regular rotation. Radio Lab. Uh, there are a couple tarot podcasts. In Search of Tarot, I think is probably my favorite. If nobody's listened to that, it's this community would really, I think, really appreciate that. It's just a great show. It comes out weekly, so there's plenty of content, and there's a back catalog. So, um, if you're like me and you voraciously go through a lot of podcasts, you can just kind of take a deep dive into what's already out there for the last, I think, 3 years maybe of seasons for In Search of Tarot. It's available on all the major podcast outlets. Um, Podcasts are big ones. So audiobooks is another one that I go to often. But if I'm listening to music, it depends on the season. It depends on the mood. It depends on so many things. And I like so many genres of music that it'd be really hard to narrow down. But I can tell you right now, both my wife and I actually were talking about this earlier today. With the spring in the air, a thing that we both go back to is Grateful Dead and Led Zeppelin, and because it's just something that we listened to in high school, and windows down, going to a park to have a picnic or something, and just that I don't know, uplifting kind of free music was just great. So all right, D, divination tool other than tarot. So I don't, other than Oracle. I mean, I don't think that was the intention here either. It's probably something other than tarot and Oracle. And to be honest, I don't really have anything else that I use for divination. However, I do have a lot of crystals. Just because I really enjoy them. I'm fascinated by things like petrified wood. I have a piece here on my desk. This is a small, what would have been a small stick that is 200 million years old and comes from uh, Colorado here in the States. So, um, to be able to hold something in my hand that was once organic matter, like something you can picture, because we can all picture a tree, and to think about a tree that was on the planet in that area 200 million years ago, and I'm able to hold a piece of it now because it petrified and turned into stone, is just amazing. I can't get over it. So that, along with other types of crystals, I really like. Lepidolite is one of my all-time favorites. It has a very, it's hard, the camera doesn't do a great job with the color on this, but it's lavender and white, and then it has all those flecks in it. It's just beautiful. And lepidolite is also known as the grandmother stone. So if you look up um, some of the energies and things that some of the reasons people work with that stone, it just resonated with me, and I think it's beautiful too. So, um, yeah, lots of crystals around all the time, and I do want to learn more about them, and that's part of the fascination for me as well. Okay, E for eat. What would you want to eat as your last meal? Wow. If only I could. If only I could have my grandmother back to you know to cook that for me. Um, because that's the type of meal I'd want. Something that we had around the table, when we'd get together. Um, and maybe of her things that she would make. She would make chicken and gravy over biscuits. She was from West Virginia, and there were a lot of those. She grew up on a farm in West Virginia with lots of siblings and things. So there were a lot of those, um, the recipes that were born out of her living in the Depression, and they would have, a limited number of resources, and they would have to stretch them, make them go farther. So biscuits were easy to make and very cheap. And if you had chicken from another meal, you could take what was left from that, and extend it by making the gravy and just kind of having it's almost like shredded chicken, and then and it was delicious. And so that was a thing that stuck with her, I think, throughout life. That was a recipe that she would come back to, and it was delicious. So I think that might be it. Um, let's see. Fears. Do you have any? What are they? Irrational, irrational. Do I have any fears? I do. I have some fears. I mean, I fear for the safety of my family. Um, that's probably if I had to think of the biggest fear, the one that just um, it's it's not a phobia. I don't think about it all. I don't obsess over it or anything, um, but certainly, I I I always want my family to be safe. So if anything challenges that, I of course would do what I can to keep them safe. But being in a position where I'm not able to do that and they would be in some kind of danger, I that yeah, that's probably it for me. Game favorite to play. Probably there's probably two. I like both Dungeons and Dragons. I've always liked that. I've played since I was a kid. But it's difficult to get enough people to play or get the right people to play. It's not easy to get that together. It's sort of an event, especially if your busy life and you got kids and everything else. You sit down and play Dungeons and Dragons, and it could take an entire day to get through part of one campaign. And this is not a time in my life where I really have a lot of spare time to do that sort of thing, but I love to play it. It's just so fun. And then the other one's Magic the Gathering. I think some other people in the tarot world are familiar with that. I think I've heard mention of it here and there. Magic the Gathering is a card game, and it's kind of funny that I played that for most of my life as well, and I was really drawn to it, and something about the cards really excited me. And go figure, and then I eventually go in and get into tarot. But Magic the Gathering is very fun game. It's card based. But there's also an electronic version called Arena. So if you don't have access to cards, or stores or other people to play with, it's kind of nice. You can hop on Arena and you can play the game for free, if you want to. There, of course, like everything else, there are paid versions, um, but yeah, you can get on there and play for free, learn the game, play against others, and just have a good time. But it's a fun game. I do really enjoy that. Holiday. What's your favorite time of the year? It's got to be Thanksgiving here in the States. Is one of the November, late November time period. Probably anywhere between Halloween and Thanksgiving. So the whole stretch, November, basically all of November, maybe late October. I like the cooler air that I have in this part of the country. I like the color change in the trees. I like the whole atmosphere. I like the smell of wood smoke in the air. I love the switch to sweater weather and that sort of thing. I love that. So but it's all born out of the reason I have good feels around that time of the year is because that was when, we'd have our most frequent family gatherings. And we still do. And we travel. We stay in a cabin every year around that time, and with some friends and family. So it's just a blast. Love it. All right. Interest for I. An interest someone might not know about you. I do have a few. I have a lot of interests. I probably should have just had my wife make a list of hobbies or something, interests that I have. Um, I like woodworking, and I've done a lot of it. I like oil painting, and I want to do more of it. Um, I am a cook. I went to some professional cooking classes, mostly as a hobby. I was very interested, and I had the opportunity to go. So I went, and it was great. And I still do pretty much all the cooking at home. Um, I was a wine consultant, and I have some. I have a bit of a cellar, but I guess it's one of those. I don't know. It's not something I'm into as much. But I do have a little bit of a collection and have an interest in well, I did anyway when I worked in the business. So lots of lots of interest. I'm also a car nut. Um, so there's that. I like I like luxury cars. I also like antique cars, um, that sort of thing. I tinker. I've done used to repair my own cars. I don't do that anymore, just mostly because of the time and because they've advanced to a point where you pretty much. I mean, you need a pro on a lot of these things to do that, and I'm definitely not a pro. Um, so lots of lots of interest. Joy, something that brings you joy. This one, it was one of those where I kind of had to weed out some things, because I felt like there were quite a few, and wow, I mean, I feel pretty fortunate to be in that situation. But watching my son accomplish something that he's worked at, is a huge source of joy for me. The biggest one right now, dominates my life because he's at that age, where he's having more of those opportunities come up, and he's crushing it. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to watch and a huge source of joy for me. So that's good. Um, K, what would you sing on a karaoke night? Um, this one, I said I like a lot of genres of music, and I do. I like almost every kind of music. I don't like, I don't even know what you'd call it, modern country or pop country music. I don't know. I like bluegrass. I like the roots kind of stuff. I love that. But I don't like modern country. However, it turns out, so I'm also I used to be a singer. I was in quite a few of the choirs at school, the touring competition things, stuff like that. And Toby Keith, if anybody of you are familiar, Toby Keith has a song called "I'm Just Talking About Tonight," and it's so perfectly in my range that that's one that sometimes, because, and if any of you are singers, you'll know when you have somebody that performs a song that's like just dialed in perfectly for your voice, it's a blast to sing, even if you don't like anything about the genre or anything else. So that's one, um, that absolutely, I would pick that because it would be so easy for me to just, like, I can just slide into that one. Don't have to even think about it. Um, so that would be it. And people would probably come away with it thinking that I had a thing for country music, and I don't. So, but I sound just like him when I sing it, and so it's fun. Um, yeah. L, what makes you laugh the most? Thing that makes me laugh the most, I think, is dry wit. like super smart, like clever, dry, witty humor gets me every time. And there's so many different people that kind of use that. Um, and it's a great, I don't know. It's just, that's my favorite kind of comedy. Whether it's stand up, because there are plenty that do stand up in that way. And there are some shows, Mrs. Maisel. A lot of the jokes are fairly dry, and I don't know. That's it. Just the smart, witty humor. PG Woodhouse, the that was the inspiration. He was the inspiration for the I'm not gonna be able to Jeeves. Now I can't think of his name. Anyway, PG Woodhouse, look up those books if you haven't read them. They're super short, little snippets of of like unfortunate, um, spoiled kind of British rich kid, um, but back around the 20s and 30s, and just the ridiculousness that goes on, um, in uh, is it Worcester, Birdie and Worcester, or Birdie Worcester, or Worcester and Jeeves? No, man, it's gonna drive me nuts. Um, you'll find out if you just check out PG Woodhouse, and it looks like a Wodehouse. PG Woodhouse, dry humor, and that's a good one. Okay, um, so movie, one you love and could watch over and over again. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I know that for sure because there was a period in my life, my early 20s. It was just when I was starting out working in emergency services, and I didn't have any money. And my brother and I were living together. He didn't have any money. He had a lot more than I had, but neither of us really had a whole lot. There was no such thing as streaming or internet, or I mean, there was internet, but we didn't have it. We didn't have cable. We had a TV and we had a DVD player. And maybe it was VHS. I don't even know if it was a DVD player. Either way, we had one movie that we owned. The rest we would have to rent if we did, which we didn't do very often. So if I really just needed to veg out and laugh at something and not have to think about stuff, because it was pretty intense time, I would come home and I'd pop that in and watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and it just, I don't know, it's like comfort food, and it's hilarious. So, and I love that era of movies too. I love the 80s. So that was fun. I think we're halfway through the list, and okay, we're not too bad. We've been at 23. We're at 23 minutes, so not too bad. So, nature for N. Where in nature do you feel the most connected? Certainly for me, that is uh, pine forest, and specifically pine forest that is near a body of water. It doesn't matter what kind of body of water, anything will do. I've been, yeah, ocean, lake, stream. I'll take it all. Doesn't matter. But I do love pine forest. And it was a funny story. I was camping one time with a friend in a pine forest in South Carolina. First time I had ever been there, and we were making our way to Myrtle Beach after high school, taking a little pilgrimage, and it was a big adventure. It was really exciting. So um, we didn't have any money either, so we stopped along the way at campgrounds and stayed there instead of staying in hotels. And so we pitched our tent at this campground in South Carolina, and it was beautiful. It was like all the ground was like sand and pine needles, but like what is it? The fir pine needles that are nice, long, soft ones. Um, So everywhere, you didn't need a mattress pad or a pad to go under your sleeping bag or anything. It was just very soft. It was nice. Um, so anyway, we got up in the morning. We were cooking breakfast, and we heard a buzz, and it was weird. It sounded like an insect, but like insect wings flapping, and it was it was louder than it should have been. At least that was kind of our perception. Like something's not right here with this sound, and it kept getting louder and louder. And then we saw it just vroom, just fly right through our campsite in between us. Actually, it went past our tent and out it went. And it was the biggest bee I've ever seen in my entire life. I have no idea what this thing was, what species or subspecies. I don't know. Whatever. It was huge, huge bee. Um, and and it started flying back at some point, and you could see it because, like, normally bees, wasps, hornet, whatever it kind it was, normally they're fairly small. And even the bigger ones like bumblebees or carpenter bees, you can see them um, from a little bit of a distance, but at some point you just lose sight. Well, this thing was very far away from us and very much still visible, flying right toward us again. So we kind of just, tensed up, like not knowing what to expect and we'd never seen anything this big in our lives. So it actually looked more like a hummingbird, which now I know there's a hummingbird wasp, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. But anyway, off it goes, boom, flies right through us again. And well, I should say too that when we arrived at this campground, it was already dark. So we got a fire going, but we really couldn't see our surroundings. There weren't really many other campers there, but we couldn't really see. We couldn't get a lay of the land. Anyway, we got up after eating our breakfast, started cleaning things up, and we walked down a path because it seemed like there might be a lake nearby. And so we walked down to the end of this trail, take a look at this lake, and I look up, and it was like some kind of scene out of a National Lampoon's movie, like clarifying why there might be gigantic beasts flying through the air around here. There's cooling towers from a nuclear power plant across the way, and I just immediately we are talking about how there's some sort of like it was like out of a comic book. There's some kind of radioactive waste that's leaking into the pond or the lake, and it's and mutating all of the flora and fauna around there. So these gigantic radioactive bees are flying around our tent, and I don't know. Obviously, that wasn't true, but it was hilarious, and I still to this day have never seen an insect, a flying insect that isn't a moth or something that's anywhere near that size. So that was fun. But I like pine trees, pine trees and water, despite that experience. So, O for optimistic. What are your hopes for the future? Um, hopes for the future. I mean, I don't know. Just on a personal level, I'd like to continue to travel more. I've done more traveling in my, adult life, middle aged period than I ever have been able to before, and I really enjoy it. Um, Broader hopes for the future would certainly be around um, the the nature of our society, Western society, is contracting. It's like we're dialing back the clock to a really bad time. And my hope is that something derails that movement and that we eventually start working our way back, not only toward being more open, but anything uh, that causes some oppression or someone to feel like they are less, or they are somehow wrong or something, that all needs to go away. And I really hope my hope for the future is that that our good sense will catch up with us as a society, and we will get past this ugly time. Fingers crossed. So, P for Pip Deck, my favorite. I do like. So I've been working with Marseille a lot more. So in general, the whole Marseille system, yes, great. One Pip deck that comes to mind that I've really been, I just love this deck is the Lux X Umbra. This is a fantastic deck. Um, and it's definitely, I mean, that is a Pip deck for sure. So if it's but um it's not Marseille. So that is like purely Pip, um and of its own system. Well, not its own system, all, but it's very good. Beautiful deck. It's just beautifully constructed. Really nice guidebook with it as well. Um, and I think the creator is going to be doing another printing. I hope. Um, I ordered direct from the creator out of France, and occasionally they will send an email out. They did not too long ago that I think they had some extras of this that they were selling. They were doing, or maybe it was a very limited print run or something. But I really hope they're going to run it again because I actually wouldn't mind getting a backup or something. Or maybe they'll create a new deck. That'd be great. Get another one out there because this one's wonderful. So I'd like to see what else they can do. Quality time. Sip my coffee. Quality time. What do you consider being quality time spent? Uh, One thing was definitely game related. Sometimes after dinner, we'll just my wife and son and I will just sit down and play a board game, and we always get to laughing about something. And there's, we just that's a good time to just sit and talk, not be around technology, not be distracted with all that kind of stuff, and so it's um, that's good quality time. Um, a lot of times there's camaraderie built into. Sometimes there's competition. That's fine too. But sometimes, depending on the game, sometimes there's camaraderie, and that builds, some fun memories and things. So, um, yeah, that's it. R for reincarnation. If you could be reborn in any time period, when would that be and why? I would not choose another time period. Being born in the 70s, um, I think was a sweet spot. And obviously I don't know because I wasn't born in any other time, but um, but I feel like we had a convergence of things that were I mean, there were a lot of freedoms, some of which are being taken away now. Again, there was just some sort of like optimism in the youth population, even though as Gen Xers we got into the whole grunge period, and there was definitely a prolonged melancholia attached to a certain segment um of our generation. But I mean, I don't know, there were a lot of good things going on, and I don't think I would. I started thinking about, what other eras might I choose? Well, some of them, the life expectancy, I'd be already beyond life expectancy. So that's not cool. Some of them came with some real turmoil and suffering and things that I just wouldn't choose to be a part of. So I don't know. I think I think I'm pretty happy with the time period, and I would choose it again if given the option. S for sacred. What's sacred to you? There are a few things, there are a few places in the world that I consider to be sacred to me. Um, and there are also some smaller scale sacred things. And I felt it when I came down to my little studio area today to film this. This is very much a sacred space for me. And I just sit down and I feel immediately the tensions wash away. Um, I love the aesthetic, the colors, um, the things around me, um, the smell of the incense, the crystals, the candles, and all of that. It just feels wonderful. And this is has fast become a sacred space, if even it wasn't before. T for tarot, your current favorite tarot deck. The one I find myself reaching for a lot, which I think is a good sign for a current favorite, is Artisan Tarot's Nicholas Conver. Let's see if we can get it. There we go. Beautiful. Yeah, Nicholas Conver, Tarot de Marseille. Very common grab for me these days whenever I'm reaching for a deck. On that note, too, um, while I'm talking about Artisan Tarot, I had mentioned this a while ago when this deck came out, the Tarot de Ambiguïté. I'm gonna do a giveaway of this deck. There we go. Um, because I have an extra copy, so I haven't arranged for that yet. But be on the lookout. One of the videos that I do in the coming days or weeks, I think is when I'll go ahead and announce that and how you can enter and so on. Um, but I don't need an extra, so I'm excited to be able to give that away. So stay tuned. Okay, unforgettable moment for you. Unforgettable moment. Definitely one of the most unforgettable moments for me was right after my son was born and he was on the scale and they were cleaning him up. I put my finger down and he grabbed onto it. And that that's an unforgettable moment for sure. My goodness. Powerful time. Vacation V, favorite destination. Um, so I haven't traveled a ton, but of the places I've traveled, Scotland is definitely one of my favorites. I could spend a lot more time there. We did a bit of a whirlwind tour just to try to cover as much ground as we could. And it was almost 2 weeks, but uh, it was enough to get a solid understanding of the lay of the land and where I would want to go back and spend more time. So that's probably of the places I've traveled that I think that's my favorite. Um, okay. W for well-being. What do you do to keep it in check? Um, I I definitely try to I I've learned over time to recognize if if a situation or something is causing me more stress than I'm prepared for, or if that is somehow going to bleed into other areas and start to impact my life in a more significant way. And my coping mechanism for that has been advocacy for myself. If just recognizing it, because that's half the battle. A lot of times these things like significant stressors sneak up on you and can take over before you even realize what's going on. And then it impacts all kinds of things, overall health and everything else. Um, And at some point, and I don't know what did this for me or how it happened, but at some point, I think I've started to realize that if I felt like something was putting maybe too much pressure on me, then I really was responsible for trying to course correct and make sure it didn't get out of control. Um, so that's what I do. I advocate for myself. It seems to be working. So that. X for X-ray. Have you had one? Ever broken a bone? Yep, as I alluded to earlier, ankle issues. I broke my talus, which is kind of a little cup and winged shape bone that supports all of your weight onto the ankle joint itself. And I broke one of those wings off, and it's a really weird break. And I was told initially by the first surgeon that the only people that ever are known for breaking that bone are quote unquote little old ladies stepping off of a curb. That's what he said. Those were his words. But apparently that's a common thing because if someone misjudges that type of motion and the side of their shoe gets caught on a curb or something, and then they put weight down, it ends up, it can do this kind of bad motion. I did it snowboarding. Um, and the reason it was able to break was the poor quality of my boots because when I started snowboarding, it hadn't been around very long. It wasn't an Olympic sport. Wasn't really. It was just sort of like for people that I guess maybe it came partly out of a rebellion against skiing or something. But um, there were professionally produced snowboards and things like that, but I couldn't afford the right boots. They were just very expensive at the time, and so I wore regular boots, and the bindings on the snowboard were um, questionable at best. So I went to a new place far away from home, was going down the first run, and there was a drop off that I couldn't see because there was a ton of fresh powder and the lighting was bad. So I had no idea the drop was even coming. Off I went. Next thing you know, ski patrol's taking me down the hill. Um, so yeah, that, and I've had a few other minor breaks, but nothing else really significant. But yeah, plenty of X-rays in my life actually. Yeah, X-rays. Yeah. Um, why yourself? When can you feel totally comfortable in your own skin? At home, obviously. I guess that's obvious. Might not be the case for everybody though. So you have to acknowledge that. Um, hmm. I don't know. They're in nature, I guess. I mean, because I can't think of. I mean, I'm not totally myself at work. I have a work self, and it depends on the family gathering, or there are a few of those that I feel like I can be 100% myself, but um, that is kind of a tough one. It's also hard to, for me, it's a little bit hard to know um, exactly what that means because I often feel comfortable in my own skin, but I feel like totally comfortable in my own skin. Maybe it's a little more rare. That might not happen all the time. Finally, we're down to Z for zodiac. Star sign are you, and do you feel a connection with it? I am Sagittarius. That is the limit of my knowledge. I don't know anything about um, I really don't know anything about astrology, about star signs, about I don't. I really just don't. I remember when I was a kid. Does anybody else remember at the grocery stores in the US, a lot of them, they had this little machine that spit out scrolls. Like you would pay, I don't know how much it cost. I mean, I was little. Um, but they were horoscopes and you would, pick your star sign, you would pull a little knob or something and it would put out this scroll that had your horoscope on it. That's a very vivid memory for me, standing in line, you know, little me, 4 or 5 years old, waiting while my mom would be buying groceries or whatever, and just every time I was there, I was just fascinated by this little machine that was selling these little rolled up pieces of paper, um, that had horoscopes on 'em. I don't know, but I think I knew back then that I was Sagittarius because it had the birthday dates on there, so I had figured that out at some point because I don't ever remember not knowing that, but I don't know anything else, about it. So that's it. Um, this was a blast. It was a really fun tag. I really appreciate Simon putting it out there. And of course, I'll put the link to his original video in there. Like I said, at the time I'm filming this, I think Robin from Toadstool Tarot is the only other one that I know of that has done it. There are probably others doing it right now. But yeah, great. I appreciate everybody hanging out, listening in. If you are also a creator, why don't you, give it a shot? Put your answers up there. It'd be great to see everybody else chime in. Stay tuned for at some point soon. I will be doing the giveaway, and that might be during a live. It might be during another another one of these videos that I've been working on this weekend that I might be posting soon. But stay tuned. We'll let you know how to enter that, and I'm excited to do it. So, thanks again, everybody, and this was an absolute blast. So, take care, all.